Well, I think the question is, what are we trying to achieve? Just Stop Oil, what we're saying is we cannot licence any new oil and gas. We're not saying shut oil off tomorrow, because that would be impractical, and that would not be a just transition. And the people who are already at the front line of all the front lines that are happening in this country right now, which are all related to the crisis one way or another, they would be the people that suffer first and worst. So we're not saying switch it off overnight. We're saying we need to start the transition with 7 or 8 years worth of oil that we already have, and we need to go. That's our target. That's our target, to be transitioned towards an energy economy which is built on sustainable, renewable, clean energy sources. We're not going to get broad public support, but that's all right, because we're not trying to get elected, and it's not a popularity contest. So that's fine. The most important thing is that our government feels the pressure that makes it do the right thing to protect us now and in the future. If our government went at it with the zeal for which it's going for environmental protesters, we'd be fine. If they were spending time, having interministerial conversations about how we solve the crisis rather than how we deal with the fire alarm, then we'd be all right. So that's why it is so important that we mobilise everybody.
There is always room for hope.
The key thing with Rishi Sunak is he's clearly incapable of dealing with this as a politician. He just doesn't get it. And I think there's a question, really, isn't there? Because they've got the best people briefing them on this. So they simply cannot be unaware. It's just that he simply doesn't want to get it. He doesn't want to face it. He's not brave enough to look at it, what it means for the country, and on a personal level for his children. So, I genuinely think that there's a sort of an absolute abdication of responsibility coming from him on this, on a political level and on a personal level. Every political party in this country, with the exception of the Conservatives, has backed the No New Oil pledge and has turned that into their policy. Every time you look at the news, every time you open a paper, there is a story about the climate crisis or about our lack of response to the climate crisis, which makes the existence of Just Stop Oil absolutely fundamentally essential. We're doing it because we don't know what else to do. The situation is absolutely desperate, and this is working because this is changing the public discourse around it, even if it's we hate you, but actually we probably have got a point about the oil and gas fields. We are just there to make sure that this conversation is happening every day in every possible cultural space. And we are achieving that. And like you say, the amount of media that we had last week was absolutely off the charts. It was astonishing. There is no environmental campaign group that has ever achieved this kind of consistent media presence. But, what we're not trying to do is get the right-wing media to go, God, Just Stop Oil, they're so amazing, what great guys. They tend to show pictures of us out on the roads, being interacted with in a negative way by drivers and by passers-by, because that's great news, right? That's a nice bit of conflict. What they're not showing is the people who stop and applaud, and the people who, burst into tears and say thank you for doing what you're doing, and then the people who stop and have a conversation and then subsequently, might go and join us on another march another time. I think there'll be so many people who are listening to this who feel, as I did, this is really scary and I don't know what to do. And I would just urge those people to find other people, whether you want to come and join Just Stop Oil, and I promise you'll be welcomed with open arms if you do. Just go and find other people who are where you are at in terms of thinking this is awful, and who are where you are at in terms of what you're prepared to put on the line for it. And that is the antidote to the despair. Every single time, finding other people who share your concerns but are prepared to work with you to do something about it. And anyone that thinks that an individual cannot make a difference has simply never tried. The lovely thing within the activist community, which it really is a community, is that there's a huge amount of self-care and love for each other, because we all understand the pressure that we're under of putting ourselves in these situations and what that feels like. And so there is just this lovely familial feeling, and we're only here as long as we're necessary. So if the next government is doing what it needs to do in respect of stopping new oil and gas licenses, then this campaign won't be necessary anymore.